All right. Hello again. It's David Miles here with Miles of Truth. And right now I want to talk about free speech and hate speech. Now, of course, we have the First Amendment in this country, which part of the First Amendment enshrines freedom of speech. There are many people that believe that hate speech should be outlawed. And they've got some good arguments for why. However, they are misguided, and I will show you how. But there are a lot of people that would like to see free speech reduced, and for hate speech laws to be passed, and for certain hate speech to become illegal. Now, there's some very good reasons why this is a bad idea, and it's a bad road to go down. First of all, as I've said before, legal definitions matter when you're talking about legal things. If you're talking about outlawing something, you have to define what you're outlawing. That's part of it. So the legislatures write the laws, and they write the definitions that go along with those laws. Now, if you're going to give the censorship power to the government, and tell them we want hate speech outlawed, you have to remember the government is not actually alive. There's no government brain that's deciding these things, that's defining these things. No, the government is run by politicians and bureaucrats. Anytime you're giving power and or authority to the government, you're actually giving that power and authority to legislators and to bureaucrats and other government employees. You're giving it to people. You can say the government, and that may maybe make you feel like it's all hands off, but no, you're giving it to people. And if you're going to pass hate speech laws, that means you are giving to the Congress, to legislators, to politicians to write up what hate speech is. They get to define it. They get to say this, that, and the other thing. This is hate speech, and therefore it's illegal. That's the kind of power that you're asking to give them when you pass hate speech laws. And maybe you think, you know what? I trust my politicians. They're not going to abuse it. They're going to write it correctly. Okay, maybe. But think of it this way. You're defining what hate speech is. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, those groups as a whole, both of them will view certain speech that is normal in the other party as hateful speech. That the other party says, no, this speech isn't hateful. What you're saying is hateful. They both honestly believe it, though, in many cases. So bear that in mind. There are many things Republicans say that a bunch of Democrats say that's hateful speech and therefore should be outlawed. But there's a lot of things that Democrats say that Republicans will point to and say that's hateful speech. And if there's hate speech laws, maybe they see that needs to be outlawed. So anytime you're looking to give extra power to the government, a helpful thing to remember is that you're giving that power to the politicians who are in the government. And at some point, that the majority could change sides. Are you okay with the other side having that power? For all you Democrats that want hate speech laws passed, are you okay with Republicans defining what hate speech is and therefore what you're not allowed to say? I'm guessing you're not okay with that. And that's the problem. If you give power to the government, the other side will sometimes wield that power. You don't get to just assume that your side and that your definitions of these things will always stand. The other side gets you. And the thing about hate speech is speech, it would always have to be updated. It would need, even if you're doing it correctly, new things are said, new terms are coined. There would be a constant need to update and to expand what hate speech is and to define those things. So it's not like you could just pass it one time and now it's good forever. That would not work. It really wouldn't. And here's another thing to think about. You remember it's the legislators that write the laws. They are the ones writing to define what this stuff is. That's their job. Many of them, I would even venture to say it might even be most, but a very large number of them have law degrees. They're basically lawyers that became politicians. Lawyers are trained to talk their way around corners and to justify things in ways that help their argument. So whether it's even politicians on your own side, you give them the power to define hate speech. Let's say they're up for re-election, and the other guy, they've got some talking points that is just walloping the one that's currently in power that's seeking re-election. How long is it really going to take for some politicians to say, if I can define those things he keeps saying as hate speech, I will have an easier chance getting reelected? Do you trust politicians enough not to take this massive advantage, if you hand it to them, of being able to find justifications and ways of saying that their opponent's speech constitutes hate speech and therefore must be outlawed? Do you trust them that much? I don't trust politicians on my own side of the aisle that much, because you know what? Sometimes I'm a big believer in the 10% rule. At least 10% of any organization is kind of garbage people that shouldn't be there, that will do the bad things, right? Might be more in politics. It probably is. But there will be people that will abuse it. You can argue you can try to argue with me. I don't think you'll even believe it yourself. But that is a fact. It will happen. So that is why it's a really bad idea to pass hate speech laws and to hand these politicians, not known for being the most honest and trustworthy group of people, let's be honest. That's why it's really bad idea to hand them this kind of power. So don't do it. If anytime you want to give extra powers to the government, think for a moment, how bad would it be if the other side had the majority and had this power? If that's something you cannot abide, that you see would be catastrophic, then don't seek that same power for your side, because it switches. Sometimes Republicans have the majority, sometimes Democrats do. I don't believe that it would ever just be one forever, and you shouldn't either. You got to concede the fact that at some point the other side's gonna be the one in charge, and they're gonna have this power. Unless your goal is to get the power, use the power to silence the opposition, and therefore have control forever. Congratulations, in that case, you are a fascist under the actual definitions. Not the fake stuff that they're talking about all the time. That would be some fascistic stuff right there. To gather enough power so that you can rig the game so the other side never gets power. That would be a great way to do it. Pass hate speech laws, and then every time the other side seems to have arguments that are resonating with the public, designate those things being said as hate speech, and therefore it's illegal, and they'll go to jail if they keep saying it. That's great way to be a fascist dictatorial regime right there, to create one. That's how that's like how you would do it. So don't do that. Let's not do that. Okay? All right, thanks.